This is a show for grown-ups.
And they say bad words.
And they say bad words.
Say final warning.
Final warning.
Hello and welcome to the Pod of Blunders. My name is Nate Magnuski, and with me is the amazing designer, Hannah Shaffer. Hannah, how the hell are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you, Nate?
It's the best day it could be.
That's great. Good to hear it.
Yeah.
We're off to a good start.
There we go. So first and foremost, what got you into tabletop?
So I've told this story before, so I feel bad if people have heard it. It's at this point, it feels like my stock podcast story. But so years ago, Evan Rowland and I, who's my frequent co-designer on games and co-podcast host, opened up a community center in our town. And the community center, we had a youth program as part of it. Our plan was to have board game nights. And on opening day, a bunch of tabletop game designers came to our opening. I live in Western Massachusetts. This is a hotspot for tabletop game design. So Joshua A.C. Newman, Emily Kerr Boss, Epadiah Ravachol, names that you might know, all showed up to, eat free food. And I was already interested in game design at the time. I thought that I wanted to do video games. I had never played a tabletop role-playing game. And just talking to those people, they were all very nice and really excited and community minded. And that's kind of what got me into it, just thinking about what it would mean to make this transition from wanting to make games on the computer, which I still play and love, to wanting to, get people sitting around together at a table.
Do you feel like your desire to make computer games has influenced your design aspects for tabletop?
Yeah. I think so. I'm trying to think. I'm like, how? How has it? I definitely think it has. I mean, I think that having grown up on computer games and some early computer games, computer games were always really comforting for me. They never felt that isolating. So I feel like when I'm making games, I don't know. I feel like I'm designing for sort of that feeling of solo comfort and cozy isolation, even though games are played with multiple people. Yeah, this is a work in progress thought. I need to kind of work on that.
That's okay.
But I'll say absolutely. And, also just in terms of the rule books that I want to write. I mean, I feel like video games tend to do a really good job of holding your hand through tutorials and sort of teaching you mechanics as you go instead of front loading everything. So I try to bring that into the games that I make.
So I first found out about you through Questlandia. Right? So what can you tell my listeners about Questlandia? The first one.
The first one. Yeah, the first one. Questlandia is the first role-playing game we made. It is a game inspired by never-ending story, sort of weird fantasy worlds that are collapsing under the weight of a bunch of social and environmental pressures that are all coming to head in this moment. So you play a bunch of disconnected characters who all have a personal goal in this moment where your world is rapidly changing around you. So sometimes it kind of plays like a Miyazaki movie, like Nausicaa and the Valley. I always get the name Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind. Nausicaa in Nausicaa, we'll say.
Nausicaa.
We'll act like I'm super familiar and Nausicaa.
Best friends me and Nausicaa is totally cool.
Or Princess Mononoke. Other times it's a little more never-ending story. But yeah, it tends to be this game that's sort of environmentalist fantasy with people just confronting this sudden moment of change in their world.
So you seem to focus more on narrative games, and that seems to speak to your aesthetic of wanting to focus on those cozy, intimate moments.
Yeah. See, you brought it around better than I could.
Every now and then I get something. So with Questlandia 2, this isn't a version 2.0. It's not like a second edition of Questlandia. This is a sequel game, essentially. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. So Questlandia 2 is, so when we made Questlandia 1, it is this game that has potentially like hours of world building built into it. You know, you could easily spend 3 hours with your friends making this weird world, and then you play in the game for, it's designed to be a one shot. So if you want to play for no more than 4 hours, then you've designed a world for 3 hours and you get like 1 hour of playtime in that world. So one of the critiques of the game was like, we made a really cool world, and then like we didn't really have the stamina to play a 6-hour one shot. So we originally decided that we wanted to expand out Questlandia 2 or Questlandia 1 into this, game that allowed for campaign play. And with that campaign play, we wanted a way to introduce some meta plot where when people made multiple worlds, they could kind of tie each world together and each game together, and it would have this narrative arc to it. So for years, we've been doing a podcast about Questlandia 2, as you might know, called Design Doc. And it's had a very long development cycle. And recently, we've decided that Questlandia 2 has kind of become its own game. The plan originally was to basically have Questlandia 2 replace Questlandia 1 and let the game go out of print, have it just be our first thing that faded into obscurity. We've decided we kind of like it. So we're actually bringing it back into print. It's out of print now. So we're going to be doing this is about to get confusing, a second edition of Questlandia 1, which is not Questlandia 2. So our naming schemes could use some work at this point. But Questlandia 2 is still going to be a thing, but it's not going to replace Questlandia 1 anymore. Questlandia 2 is still going to be a thing, but it's no longer just going to replace Questlandia 1. It's going to be its own independent game. Maybe it won't even be called Questlandia. I guess we'll find out.
Ooh.
Oh, who knows?
So I have some naming suggestions for you to help clear up the whole issue.
Oh, yeah. Questlandia Too Fast, Too Furious.
That's a good one. Yep. I mean, that's near the top of my list. Yes. I was thinking Nintendo, just call it Questlandia U, like the Wii.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Super Questlandia is also on the table, I think.
Super Questlandia World, I think, is probably should be it.
And then you can combine like certain aspects of each game and have like Questlandia All-Stars in a couple of years.
This is really starting to take shape. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see you writing anything down, but I just know you'll have that. So.
And it's so brilliant. It's just cemented into my mind immediately. I don't even need to write it down.
So I know you're half of the, I want to say studio, but it's a collaborative effort. Turtlebun, right?
Yeah, Turtlebun.
It's a collaboration. How did this come about?
So Turtlebun is a pretty recent thing. Prior to Turtlebun, Evan Rowland and I were making games as part of a 3-person worker-owned co-op called Make Big Things with our collaborator, Brian Van Slyke. Brian still makes games, but I actually don't even know if we've talked about this publicly, but this is totally, it's like fine being public knowledge. We decided as a result of the pandemic and just, I think in the pandemic, a lot of people felt kind of burned out. And it was this time to kind of slow down and think about what everybody really wanted. So we decided pretty recently that it was time for us to all sort of do our own thing and go our separate ways. So Brian is part of this amazing collective called the Tessa Collective. They make these educational games for activists. They train other co-ops on how to be co-ops. Like they do awesome work. But Brian has absorbed some of our old board games. Like Brian absorbed Good Dog, Bad Zombie, which is a game we all made together. And Evan and I, who've worked together for years, we love working together, decided to take the role-playing game leg of Make Big Things. And we became Turtlebun. And why Turtlebun? I don't know.
Like it's a tortoise and the hare thing.
Yeah, I guess it is the tortoise and a hare thing. I'm just going to say that was all intentional. I think.
Yes, exactly as you planned.
Yeah.
So with you and Evan, are you working together on all your games, or is it you have some of the things that you're working on by yourself, or is it always collaborative?
At this point, it's pretty much always collaborative. With the caveat, with the notion that, each of us has sort of like projects that are really near and dear to us, where we're sort of the lead on the project, or, the one that has the initial spark, and we just kind of support each other in taking that idea to completion.
So whose idea was it with Damn the Man, Save the Music? I know your name is on the cover as the author. But he did all
Yeah.
the art too, right? So,
Yeah. And Damn the Man was a Make Big Things game. So there was even more sort of,
geez.
there were multiple levels of collaboration going on with, the three of us who were part of the co-op. So yeah, I mean, Damn the Man, I am a sucker for 90s movies and like teen coming of age movies. Like they really hit the sweet spot for me. So yeah, Damn the Man was my idea. I really wanted to make a one-shot game that used some of Questlandia's crazy worlds falling apart mechanics, but in actually a game that you could play in one session where you didn't have to spend 3 hours making the world. And I realized that Empire Records, which is the inspiration for the game, like had some of that Questlandia energy, like a bunch of people confronting this moment of change for their indie record store that was about to fall apart, while they all were trying to accomplish a big personal goal.
It's an awesome game. I know you won the IGDN award back in 2018, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's going to be the best win of my life, that one.
So far, it'll be.
So far.
I mean, you're making some amazing games now. I know the one I saw most recently, and I don't know if it was your most recent game, to be honest. It was Mud, a Golem memoir.
Yeah, that is the most recent one.
What an amazing looking game that is.
Thank you.
It's one of those games that I define as like a type 2 fun. It doesn't seem like a capital F fun game, or it's like a joyous, raucous time. Because I'm sorry, I don't want to tell you what the game is. You tell me what the game is, please.
I can tell you. It's funny because I mean, I'll tell you what the game is, but also sometimes it's super helpful when somebody tells me like what they think Questlandia is about or Damn the Man is about. I'm like, oh, that's so much better than I have described it. Can I just steal that? But yeah, Mud is this zine and solo role-playing game. Super, super light touch on the role-playing game elements. Like I would say it's much more of like a choose your own adventure book about a golem who wakes up in the home of a sculptor, a creator, and doesn't know anything about what it is or who it is or why it was brought into existence, and just goes on this journey to find itself and find community. Right now it's shaping up much more like a graphic novel, which I feel bad because Evan is just like doing a whole lot of art for this book, but it's almost done and it's going to be really great. Yeah,
it's gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
When I was reading it, it struck me as a trans narrative.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that there. Definitely some heavy on the queer Jewish folklore.
As all good things are.
Yes.
But as I was saying before, it seems like a type 2 fun game for me, where it doesn't seem like it's like a happy time when you're playing it, but it's a time that's going to be impactful, and then you'll reflect on it later on, hopefully, and go, wow, that was a really beautiful experience.
I hope so. I like that description of type 2 fun. I think, can I put that on the itch.io page? Can I quote you on type 2 fun? Yeah.
Yeah. I first came across that concept. I was playing a game called Cats and Corpses. And it was about being a ghost and trying to stop your cat from eating your body.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was one of those, like, I was not in the headspace for this game when I was playing it. And it was like, whew, I got to put this book down for a grip and come back to it later on.
Yeah.
And I was looking up things on games that aren't like happy times and what that is. Like, there must be a concept out there that describes it. And they were saying type 1 fun is, the big, goofy, exuberant time. Type 2 is that thing that's not fun in the moment, like running a marathon, but later on you're like, I did that and I achieved something and that was meaningful to me. And type 3 fun is not fun at any level. So
I'd never heard that before, and I like that a lot. That works for me.
Yeah, it kind of reshaped how I thought about some games,
Yeah,
because games don't have to be a jolly to be good.
Yeah, and Mud definitely isn't, but I think it's like, I think it's going to be sad. Like, I think it will have sad parts, but I think also, after finishing it and sitting with it, like, I think it's a game that will feel good to have played. Evan's art will really make it too. Yeah. I always want to give him a ton of credit because I just feel like he does so much, like such a lion's share of the work that we're doing together. And I'm always just really grateful for him bringing things to life with his illustrations.
So I want to talk about a lighter game now, just kind of a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Enter the Orb.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like that, I had such a visceral response when I was looking at that. I'm like, oh my God, like an instant 90s nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
But what is Enter the Orb and why is Enter the Orb?
Why is Enter the Orb is a great question. So Enter the Orb is a game inspired by Mind's Eye, which is a Mind's Eye in some similar films. How to describe Mind's Eye? So in the early 90s, when computer animation was still like 3D computer animation was still new and experimental and blowing people's minds, these I don't know what the name of the company was that like made the Mind's Eye, but Mind's Eye was not one company or one director. It was basically this like montage of all of these different early 90s 3D animated shorts, which is not even a correct description because they were like it would be like something from a Mazda commercial, a little snippet from a music video, one of Pixar's earliest animated like demo reels all mashed together to make this like loose narrative set to like late 80s power ballad music.
It's amazing. It's so good.
They're super weird. You can find like most of the Mind's Eyes for free on YouTube. Like if you just search for Mind's Eye. Also, like if anybody was like, what? Yeah, I mean these were movies that we had on the like VHS when I was growing up, and I loved them. They blew my mind. And so why is Mind's Eye or why is Enter the Orb, like why does that exist? That's a great question. I mean, I think I had just rewatched Mind's Eye at some point, and I was like, this is just something to be treasured. And like, I don't know how many people are like, oh yeah, Mind's Eye, of course. And I was like, what would it be like to make a game that was like being inside the Mind's Eye movie? So that is why Enter the Orb.
It's a good why. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those games. It's a micro game, right?
Yes.
I saw that and I'm like, I've never even considered how this would play out on a table, but now I need, like, I have a visceral need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty, I mean, play it in like 20 minutes. It's pretty short, and be in your own experimental 90s 3D animated film.
That's all I've ever wanted.
Me too.
So you have a number of other micro games, right? For out of Turtlebun and previous stuff.
Yeah.
What is a micro game? How would you define it? Is it the length of the gameplay? Is it the length of the product?
That's a great question. You know, depending on what standards you use, like Enter the Orb might not even fit into micro game. It is, I don't know how many pages. It's maybe like 8 pages. So I don't know if that's even a micro game. That is a good question that I don't even feel like I'm equipped to give the, you know, like the definitive answer. I think some people would say a micro game is a game that can fit on, you know, a small piece of paper, on a business card. But I think that it's actually a more complicated answer than that. And we did an episode of Design Doc about this called Scopeful Optimism, if anybody wants to listen to it. It's actually about the scope of games and how, like, you know, you can fit a game on a business card that creates entire worlds. Epi Ravachol has a game called Vast and Starlit that does that. Like it's a business card sized game that you can play for the rest of your life and like play out these stories of spaceships in trouble. So maybe I'll leave it to somebody else to answer the question definitively of like, what is a micro game? But I think it could either be a small game, like a physically small object, or maybe a game with a small scope and setting. I'm not sure which one should be the definitive answer.
Well, I have the definitive answer here, and no, I don't. Thank you. And you're wrong on across the board.
I was like, oh shit.
Bottom marks, goodbye.
All right, you really got me there.
Sorry.
That's good.
So you do have a micro game, no matter how you define it, with Birds Are Amazing.
I would say Birds Are Amazing. To me, that does fall into the micro game category, yeah. What
is it for our listeners who are woefully ignorant of your amazing birds game?
Yeah. Birds Are Amazing is it's like maybe 240 words. It's a very short game. It fits on a business card, and it's a game about making up bird facts. It's like one of those games, it's like faster to read than for me to explain, but it's it's such a silly game. And it's also like, I mean, it's this game that we sell for $2 at conventions, and it's one of our best selling games, and it brings people a lot of joy. And so therefore it brings me joy.
It's a great game. The game is amazing. The birds are amazing. Who doesn't love bird facts? I mean, come on.
Everybody loves bird facts.
That's
The,
right.
the worst part about the game, I mean, it's just about making up these fake bird facts on the fly, and I am so bad at it. On the fly. See,
I'm sorry. I couldn't
I'm
resist.
I'm terrible at the game, because sometimes like somebody will pick up a copy of the game and then they're like, tell me a bird fact, and I just like freeze. So I need to keep some in my back pocket.
Just a scroll of bird facts you can unfurl at the right
Exactly.
time. I think it's
Yeah.
handy to have that. Yeah,
Yeah,
We'll
I
come
mean,
up.
we should all have that anyway.
we should. That's your next thing you can market.
Exactly. Oh yeah, that would be really cool. Just like this long scroll of fake
Yeah.
bird facts.
Like the game is $2. The add-on scroll is 16 because it's 4 feet long.
Yeah.
Full of bird facts.
Oh, I'm really into the idea of like a of a base game that's $2 and all of the expansions are like $20. That's really hitting the spot for me.
I think DLC for role-playing games is the next big market. I mean, sure, some games already have that.
Yeah, they
Every
do.
month is $50 for a new book, but that's okay. We don't interview those people.
Birds Are Amazing is going to lead the way then, I think.
I think it's time for the indie scene to catch up. So
Mhm.
thank you for spearheading that. If
we're gonna really lock down that DLC pay to play in-app purchases.
Yeah. Make sure you have like a win condition too. So like there's definitely a winner for the role-playing game. That's always
Yeah,
nice to have.
Absolutely. I think you have to buy a special hat for each bird fact that costs $1.99. Just
Yeah.
gems for bird facts. I don't
There
know.
you go. Little like loot boxes with a bird fact in it randomly. Some of them
Oh,
are really good, worth more points.
absolutely.
You know.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm constantly thinking of ways to game the system. So
I'm prepared to give you $500,000 right now to hop on board this.
it's going to be really lucrative. So, get in on the ground level.
I have to. I have no choice. All the sweet podcasting money I'm bringing in, I'm just going to give it right back to you now.
Yeah.
So what's next for Turtlebun Studios? I want to call it studios so bad. What's next for Turtlebun?
I appreciate it. Studios makes it sound like so fancy.
Right?
What's next? So we are working on a game called Starship Ultralux, which started as a hack of Dan the Man and has become something totally different, which is this game about a bunch of passengers and crew who are on a derelict luxury space cruise gone a million years off course trying to find their way back home. We've been playtesting it for a few years. It changes a lot between every playtest, and it's like a hybrid board game role-playing game, which is really exciting for us.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
You got some fun irons in the fire coming up.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
It's awesome.
It's
It's
more
awesome.
fun to come up with ideas than finished projects, but
yeah.
at least we have finished projects, so I know that it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I have every faith that you guys will get this done.
Thank you.
So I want to talk about your charity work that you have a sale right now on your site, and it's going to support Red Canary Song. By the time this episode airs, unfortunately, I think that sale will be over, but people should still go support this charity.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about the charity, please?
Yeah, Red Canary Song is this amazing organization. So it is a grassroots transnational collective run by sex workers. Its mission statement is to support Asian sex workers and massage parlor workers who have just been grossly neglected in this country and around the world. And, after the attacks, it's just absolutely devastating. And I hadn't known about the organization prior to the massage parlor shootings, but Red Canary Song is doing amazing work, and I'm so glad that they exist. I'm really happy to be able to support them in as small a way as we can. And yeah, everybody should go support them. Like, please send some money their way, even if you miss the sale that we're doing, because they're doing really, really great work. And they do stuff. They do mutual aid. They help people with legal support. They're just really rad.
It's amazing. They're such a holistic organization for the work they do.
Yeah.
Like they don't just say, oh, they're not doing food security issues for these workers. They're doing cradle to grave service. I mean, everything they can do to help, they're doing, which is it's amazing to find a charity that really does that sort of depth.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I feel like there's more places like this that are cropping up. One reason why Red Canary Song is really awesome is that, there's these people have learned to be sex workers, especially, and I am a former sex worker, so I mean, this is like also something that's like near and dear to me, is that I think a lot of sex workers have grown to be really wary of like humanitarian aid organizations that
Sure.
step in and, claim to want to help people and claim to want to help prevent human trafficking, and then end up just contributing to part of the problem. And also, like, policing is a big part of the problem in making sex workers feel unsafe, keeping sex workers unsafe, incarcerating sex workers. And I mean, it's like it takes a sex worker-led organization to help get out of some of those violence cycles. So
Sure.
I, super support what they're doing.
Well, that's great. Yeah, there's no like savior swooping in and trying to do it some misguided bullshit to
Yeah.
help. It's wow, that's even better.
Yeah. Yeah. So go support them.
Yes.
And and I mean, generally, like, also it's just a good practice to like looking for organizations to support, to make sure that like the people running it have some skin in the game, I guess, which is that the people leading the organization, like if you're supporting a trans mutual aid fund, make sure that it's trans people running it. It's just good to do that work and make sure that the people who are advocating for this work have a vested interest in keeping everybody safe.
That's fantastic. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about tonight that you really want our listeners to know about?
Can I throw a question back at you?
Of course, yeah, sure.
Cool. Is there anything during this pandemic, which has been obviously a really difficult year, is there anything that you've like taken on, any new hobbies, anything fun that you're just like, oh yeah, despite this being a really challenging year, like I'm glad I learned ukulele?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a backstory to this. My best friend, I've known him since we were 6 years old. I'm 35 now, and we hang out like every week. We always have. He's my brother, but with the pandemic, we couldn't hang out, and so we said, how are we going to hang out when we can't be face to face? Let's start a podcast. And so that's how Pot of Blunders came about.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. So we're like, we want to still hang out. So now he's my partner in this. He's my editor. He's my buddy. We found a way to make it work.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. So yeah, that's what I started this year. How about you? Anything that you've dug into?
Let's see. Anything that I dug in? I mean, this seems like such a like everybody doing it in a pandemic thing to do, but I started doing yoga and it's been really helpful for me. So
that's awesome.
I mean, it's like really, it's like yoga, but I'm like a person who is not flexible inherently. Like I can't touch my toes. It does not come naturally to me. And now I can touch my toes. So
hey. There you go.
And then I don't know why I'm like sharing how to touch your toes secrets, but I learned from a YouTube video. So I'm just going to share it with anybody who's like, I want to touch my toes. I learned a trick to be able. Can you touch your toes?
If it were severed, I'd probably pick it up. Yeah.
This is the trick that I learned to be able to practice touching your toes. So I guess that like, a lot of inflexible people like me sort of are using the wrong muscles to be able to bend. Like you think of it as being in your hamstrings, and a lot of it is like in your hip flexors. So if you want to try to touch your toes and not over focus on your hamstrings, you can wrap up like a towel and sort of put a towel above your knees, sort of like your mid thighs, and kind of squeeze the towel. And that like, I don't know what it does. I don't know why it works, but it makes it so like you take some of that work out of your hamstrings and you like and please, like if somebody is like, I'm a physical therapist, this is like made up. Please let me know, because I know I'm not using like the right physiological descriptions of what's going on. But whatever it is, like whatever it changes and how you're like using your muscles to stretch and touch your toes, like it makes it so you can just immediately touch your toes by sort of like putting this towel between your legs and kind of squeezing it. You just pop right down.
Now I know what I'm doing tonight. Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe never to get up again. So be careful.
Worth it. My final words on this.
And if anybody's like can't get a visual, I don't know, look it up online, or like I'll take a picture and post it on Twitter. But
it's more food for the show notes. I won't explain why it's there until they listen to the whole episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's this video about how to touch your toes. So I know it's silly, but that was like a huge win for me, was being able to touch my toes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tangible thing, like a note of your accomplishment. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Good for you. I did something similar in that I also started home brewing beer.
Oh, that's a classic. That's like a pandemic badge.
Yeah, I had to. I had this beard, I had the glasses. I'm kind of overweight. I'm like, I had to start brewing beer now. It's a rule.
Are you happy with your batches of brew?
Yes, I've had a couple nasty ones. I made a wild rice beer that tastes like mustard, kind of.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's not a great success, but I made some mead. I've made some cider that's really good. I made a chai cider recently. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, good stuff.
Cool. Yeah, brewing beer. That's a great one. I don't love beer, so that's probably not one that I would do, but like I do, I have my pandemic badge of fermentation. So,
there you go.
I make pickles, which are like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something beer. Tactile beer.
Yeah, it's like a chunky beer.
Yeah. It was just getting worse in my head the more that I tried to make a comparison. So
what are pickles but a chunky sour beer? If you think about it. It's a worse analogy.
Green chunky beer on a vine is
So I think we both need to work on the marketing, but I think we have something here too.
Yeah, between that and the DLC, I think we're set.
All right. Well, if you ever want a third person to come into now it's a studio. Like, congratulations. Let me know.
Our empire, Turtlebun empire
right.
at this point. So,
it's a wide spanning. Hannah, you've been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it. Hi, Hannah. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Nate. It's good to see you after apparently like 8 months. So hello.
It's been a fun 8 months, so hasn't it? You've been very busy.
I have been busy. Yeah, it's been, an up and down 8 months, I imagine, for a lot of people.
That's a very kind way to put it. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So since we last spoke, I know you and Evan had a wonderfully successful Kickstarter for the updated version of Questlandia.
Yeah, we did.
So congrats. What
Thank
happens now, like between when it funds and when you actually get the books out? Like, what is that process like for you?
Yeah, I guess now we're like on the hook to make the game.
No pressure.
I mean, it's kind of cool because this is the first time we've ever republished something that's been published before. It feels really decadent in a lot of ways because it's like the work looks like opening up what's essentially a completed first draft, which is this game that we made years ago, but it needs a lot of work. And, it was the first role-playing game we ever made. It didn't have professional editing at the time. So there is real work to be done. And, it's in some ways the hardest part of it is like looking into this mirror of the past and being like, oh, I can't believe I wrote that in 2014.
All those years ago. It seems like it was yesterday. The 2014 seems like nothing at all, but 8 years, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of years. So yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's fun looking at lines like, I think we called it like the Questlandia role-playing game. And I don't know why there's something about that feels really like, that feels so 2014, calling something like, the official Dungeons and Dragons system.
I love it.
Yeah.
So do you enjoy this part of the work, or is it just like you need to get through this to get to your next project?
It's a mix, I mean, it's like it sometimes doing the work, it feels a little bit painful. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is not the part that I want to be doing. I want to be coming up with like the next game. But
Sure.
I kind of appreciate that this is part of the cycle, that it's like coming up with the things, then you do have to make the thing. It's part of it. I do like, yeah, this part has been pretty fun.
That's awesome. That's great. But I know you, beyond Questlandia, you've been busy. You put out one of the top itch physical games, right, in December.
Yeah, I think this is the first time that we've crossed that, like, that itch.io. I think it was like spot number 1 for a day, and that's like, oh,
and of course we're talking
really great.
Of course, we're talking about. Let me take a deep breath for this one. Living with the Certainty of Death by the Imminent Explosion of Our Orbiting Artificial Planet, Public Guest 5.
I'm glad you had the name in front of you, because I don't know what it is.
Well, I always go by the abbreviation anyway. It's to its fans, it's always going to be LWTCODBTIEOUOAPPG5. No, that's just as easier.
Classic.
Rolls off the tongue. So this is like a single page game with the longest title.
Yeah, I know. I think this is kind of going to be our new thing, is like single page games with like really aggravatingly long titles. It seems kind of fun. Yeah, so it's a single page, single player game, and it is about being a person who is living on a planet that it's being orbited by some weird artificial planet. There's no, like, we don't give any context for what that means or how that came to be. The planet is called Public Guest 5. At some point in your future, it will explode, consuming your planet and life as you know it, but you don't know that. So it's just this game where you're rolling dice every day to see sort of what you do. It's like maybe you make some art, and then if you roll doubles, Public Guest will kind of do something a little bit menacing and ominous, until eventually consuming your world in a ball of fire.
So what triggers that exactly? I know doubles trigger something bad happening, but is that the immediate end of the game, or is that just something ominous happening?
Yeah, that's something ominous happening. I can't remember if it's you roll, it might be when you roll Snake Eyes, or maybe it's when you roll Snake Eyes that Public Guest explodes. I don't actually remember. I think that's what it is. But yeah, so, doubles generally will trigger, something like Public Guest 5 rains down fire or sends an ominous garbled message in an alien language. And then on those Snake Eyes, it's game over.
It's so beautifully like Star Trek adjacent. I don't know. It's just something that reminded me of it when I was reading it today.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you say that, because I have been watching a lot of Star Trek recently. Nice. Like every I watched DS. You're a Star Trek fan?
I'm a middle-aged white man with glasses and a beard. Yes, of course I am.
That's funny. I'm just gonna laugh for a minute at that. So I loved Star Trek. I finished Deep Space Nine. I've now been watching Next Generation. I'm watching the new show Discovery, and I think that I was thinking a lot about also, like, sometimes the Federation leaves worlds kind of worse than they found them.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, your planet's going to explode. It's kind of against the Prime Directive for us to mess with this too much. Bye.
It sucks to be you. Peace.
So, yeah. So, yeah, definitely there's some Star Trek energy there.
So who's your captain? I have to ask,
I would say probably Cisco. I loved DS9. It feels like it just holds like a really important place in my heart. But I am really, really appreciating acting Captain Saru on Discovery.
Yeah.
At least I'm not that far into Discovery, so no spoilers. But yeah, how about you?
Cisco, actually, you're the only other person I've met who first doesn't qualify it. It's just Cisco. Boom, that's what it is.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Cisco. Picard's my close second. I'm going to admit, of course.
Yeah, easy second for sure.
But, Janeway deserves some mention too.
I have not seen Voyager yet, so that is my next one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy for you to take that journey.
Yeah. we'll have to come back after I do and, you know, do this again. So
Absolutely. It'll be another addendum in another 8 months about this.
Okay, I'll set my clock.
So no pressure. I know you have a lot of irons in the fire now, but is there anything that's on the horizon for you and Evan?
You know, there's always, we have our schedule planned out generally, like sometimes a few years in advance.
Wow.
Honestly, right now we're kind of waiting to see what is happening with Kickstarter. You know, Kickstarter made this announcement about getting involved in some blockchain stuff, and I think we're just taking a little bit of a wait and see approach. I mean, I think for a lot of people, it was this moment where they're like, oh, this is this ecosystem we've really relied on, and maybe we shouldn't have always relied on it in this way. I felt really grateful for like what Kickstarter has done for us. I mean, it's allowed us to reach this new, like this audience of people, a lot of whom are just browsing Kickstarter. Like they just are browsing Kickstarter and find a role-playing game, and they're like, what's this cool thing? I said thing because I think I remembered maybe I'm not supposed to curse.
You can say whatever you'd like.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
No rules.
So, I mean, I think that if we leave Kickstarter as a platform, I think that's really going to change for us. Like, I think it's going to change the people that we have access to. So that's just something that we're thinking about, and I want to see where it goes. But we have games planned. We're going to keep making them. Questlandia is obviously the next one. Getting that out will be really good. And then it'll probably be onto our space game, Starship Ultralux. But, you know, knock on wood.
Awesome. I can't wait for both of those things to come out.
Thank you. I'm excited.
But I'm more excited for another project I heard you mentioned on Design Doc, actually.
Yeah.
It was Design Doc, of course, is your podcast. Make sure my listeners know. They should already know, but in case they don't, you had mentioned a t-shirt.
Oh my gosh.
That was...
Which one? We come up with so many stupid t-shirts.
Oh, this wasn't stupid. This is the greatest idea I've ever heard in my life. It was a bunch of sketched bats.
Yeah.
With the words, "Angels are everywhere."
Like, why?
I had to pull the car over because I was laughing so hard at
Oh
the
my
premise
gosh.
of this. I need this. Please, 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 please make this a thing.
Okay, we're definitely tallying points for like the "Angels are everywhere" t-shirt people, and it's great to have another point in that column. So
Good. And the effort I can put towards that, please let me know.
thank you. I don't remember where that idea came from. It's so silly, and I also feel like I need that t-shirt. Yeah, it's so bizarre.
So I want to be sensitive to your time. I know this is going to be added onto my original episode.
Yeah,
so,
I want to be sensitive to your time.
It's always a joy to edit, so no problem at all. But is there anything else that you want to leave us with before I let you go for the evening?
Well, I guess I want to give like props to you, Nate. I know that one reason that the interview hasn't come out yet. Oh, there's a train in the background. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm just gonna let that.
It's the
I'm gonna
ambiance.
just let that. Yeah, it feels like very like, I don't know, night train to nowhere.
It's a noir aspect of the episode now. This is great.
We'll just leave that train in. What I was going to say was I wanted to just like give props to you for having this like aggressive schedule that you had set for yourself, and then also for recognizing that it was like maybe too intense.
Yeah, bit off a bit more than I could chew on this one, but
so I hope it's felt more reasonable like over the past few months, like scaling it back a little bit.
it's been better, yeah. But depending on our actual plays, the reviews, and the interviews, you know, we've hit a good like once a week pace. So
Once
we're
a week
managing.
is still, yeah, it's a lot. So yeah. Credit to you. Thank you for what you're doing.
You're very kind. Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate that. But yeah.
That's what I got. Just, you know, gonna shower you with praise.
I'm basking in it. It's like a warm blanket to me.
No, otherwise, I don't know. Just, you know, it's been a really challenging, like, almost 2 years for a lot of people, and just trying to like take it slow and pace out the next year, number of months. So
it's gonna get better in a day, right? That's what I'm told. So
yeah, not some wood.
All the
Knocking on wood
things.
is like my only superstition. I do actually knock on wood. So knock, knock, knock.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much for coming back on the show and catching us up on what you've been working on. I wish you all the best. I cannot wait to see what you and Evan come out with next. It's always quality stuff, and it's always a blast talking to you.
Thank you so much, Nate. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm excited for no rush. Seriously, no rush on like the episode. I'm not, I have no timeline. So yeah, whenever it works for you.
I want to thank Hannah again for coming on the show twice. And will she come on a third time? Only time will tell. Although next time, maybe we'll try to get Evan on the show. Something to think about. Anyway, either way, Hannah or Evan, if you want to support them in their continued good works, make sure you follow the link in the show notes to their itch.io page and to their website as well. Both places are great to find their games. It depends if you want them physically or digitally or both. And just know that you're supporting two of the most creative, wonderful people in the industry right now. They're a joy. Well, I assume Evan is. Hannah's definitely a joy. Evan, jury's out, but I'm going to just assume that you're also a joy. There. Know that you're on thick ice, buddy, okay? Thick ice. Oh, and if you want to hear more from them, make sure you go check out their podcast, Design Doc. And again, I'll have links to all this in the show notes, so yeah, go check them out. Become their patrons. Listen to their beautiful dulcet tones. They're fantastic. And if you want to hear more of our dulcet tones, and make sure that we can keep putting out more interviews, actual plays, and reviews, and all those wonderful things that you love, maybe consider becoming one of our patrons too, over at patreon.com/potofblunders. You'll get access to all kinds of wonderful things, like all the games I make. I think they're wonderful. Our Jumping the Street Sharks podcast, some of our exclusive Discord stuff, and depending on the tier you bid, you could also come on the show yourself, which, who could ask for anything more out of life, you know? To our current patrons, I want to say thank you, as always, because we wouldn't make the show without you. It's because of your continued support, your camaraderie on the Discord, your ridiculous games that you make. I am loving this as a hobby, and I really do appreciate you and your support. So thank you all very, very, very much. And for the Pot of Blunders, I've been Nate Magnuski, and as always, may all your Ds be 12s.
Thank you.